All right, CNT125, we are working on our layer 3 troubleshooting on the first part of our troubleshooting lab, part 1 of our troubleshooting lab. We're working now on layer 3 troubleshooting techniques. Okay, so again, we left off on checking. We did the layer 1 cabling, we did the layer 2 NICs and interfaces and the no shutdowns. And if I look at it now, it looks like, hey, things are working. Well, we're partway there, but we're not all the way there yet. So we can't let this deceive us. We have more work to do to make sure all these devices are connecting over to the ISPs, which what they're trying to do. So for layer 3, we're thinking things like IP addressing and things like ipconfig or ifconfig, ipconfig release renew, trying to make sure the IP addressing we have is correct, and doing things like pings and traces to make sure we have paths from A to B, if you will. So let's take a look at PC1. Let's just start right there. And we're going to do an ipconfig and see what we get. See if we are getting, ipconfig. See if we're getting any kind of IP addressing. And we are not. We have nothing here. Okay, so maybe we want to do a release renew and see if we get anything. So let's try to release what's here. Oh, it's not using DHCP. Huh. Okay. So let's go to here. Oh, it's set for static. Okay, so let's do DHCP, see if we pick anything up. And it looks like we are, so let's do an ipconfig here. ipconfig and see what we're getting. Hey, we're getting a 192.168.64.101. There's our subnet mask, there's our gateway. Let's check that against our map. Our PC down here is 64 network, so 64.101 makes perfect sense. 192 subnet mask, gateway 64.1. Oh, we're getting a 64.10. Huh. So we may not be getting the right gateway, but let's try the next step. Let's try to ping. Let's try to ping the gateway, ISP, and etc. So let's try to ping that. Maybe something changed. Again, we're the new guy here. So 64.10. And are we getting that? Does not look it. So let's try what the map says. Let's try what the map says. Let's try 64.1 because that's, this is the map, my boss or the whoever gave me for this site. So let's try the 64.1 and see if we get anything. Oh, we do. Okay, so 64.1 is there, but we're getting a bad default gateway through our config. That looks like something we'll need to fix elsewhere. But let's try to ping. As we say here, let's try to ping the HTTP server and see if we get it. So let's try to ping 10, 10, 10. I think 3 is the DHCP server. No, excuse me. The web server. Let's look over here. Web server, yeah, 10, 10, 10, 3. So let's try to see if we get that. Not very hopeful because we have the wrong default gateway in our configuration. So it's not very hopeful we're going to get it, and this is really not a surprise. Okay, so we're at least getting an IP now. We don't have the correct information, but we're at least getting an IP. So I'm going to close that out. Let's now look at PC2, and let's do the exact same thing. Let's check the PC. Let's do ipconfig, see what we get. We're getting all zeros. Okay, so let's try... Okay, let's try the whole release renew. Let's see if we get anything different. Release. Oh, not using DHCP. So let's go here to this. DHCP. Okay, what do we get on this guy? So we're getting an IP. ipconfig. Hey, there we go. We're getting a 192.168.64.102. There's our subnet mask, but we're getting this 64.10 gateway. And again, if I ping 192.168.64.10, I don't think it's there because the gateway, as we noticed, should be 64.1. Yeah, we're not getting 64.10. If we do 64.1, we get it. So our config we're getting from the DHCP server is not correct. We'll try the 10.10.10.3 again real quick. I don't think we're going to get it because, again, we have a bad default gateway address on this PC. Yep, there's going to time out again. All right, we'll close that out. Let's check our laptop. Same thing. We'll go through that as well. Let's check our laptop. Let's do IP config on this guy, see what we get. Hey, we're getting a 192.168. Looks promising. We're getting a gateway 192.168, 192.10. That looks like that could be odd. But let's try to ping it. Ping 192.168, 192.1. 192.1 we get when we ping it. If we ping 10, we're probably going to run into the whole, again, it has no idea what it is. So we've been given, again, another bad default gateway. So if I were to try to ping 10, 10, 10, 3, again, it's going to time out because it can't, it's trying to hit that 6410. It doesn't exist, so it's not going any further. And if I actually traced on any of these, trace RT 10, 10, 10, 3, it's going to hit that gateway and basically time out because it's trying, since we've been given the address of 192.168, 192.10, it's trying that and it's not there. So it's literally just going to time out, time out, time out, time out. That's what's going to end up happening. All right, so we have IPs, but we don't have the correct IP configuration. All right, let's check our switch. Let's keep working our way up through here. On my switch, username test, password, enable class. Let's do a show run. Let's check that this IP is correct. 192.168.02 seems like it should be correct. I'm going to pull up our map right here. 192.168, okay. The router subinterface for VLAN 1 is 192.168.01. So the switch being 02 makes perfect sense. That's the next usable number for VLAN 1. So that looks like that is correct. There's no issues there on the switch. I would say the switch's layer 3 looks good. It's not conflicting anything. So we could kind of check that one off, and that's all the switch is doing, just that. Now let's look at layer 3 on the router. All right. So let's pull up our router, and let's do a show run on this. And let's try to be a little logical here. Let's check the ports, then the scopes, then the NAT. So let's check the ports first and make sure all these ports are correct. So coming down through, we're going to check these sub-interfaces. So I'm just going to get my map handy, and I should see 01 here, 64.1, 128.1, 192.1. So 1, VLAN 1, 01, subnet mask looks good. 10.1q10, 64.1 looks good. 20.1q20, 128.1, subnet mask looks good. 30.1q30, 192.1, subnet mask looks good. And again, I'm checking every single number as I go. I'm literally looking at every single number, making sure all this information is correct. And you noticed every one of these is .1.1.1.1. So the stuff we were getting earlier for default gateways we know is incorrect. But our ports are good. That's the first thing I'm checking. I'm checking my ports. Let's check our scopes. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up here now. Actually, I'll do this. I'll do a Control-C. I'll do a new show run. And after I have my scope showing, I'm going to do a Control-C, so I'm only looking at that. All right, let's look at our excluded addresses. 64.1 to 64.100 looks good. 128.1 to 128.100 looks good. 192.1 to 192.100 looks good. Let's look at our PC pool. 64.0 is the network. Default router 64.10. There it is. And actually, the DNS is wrong too. It's showing 10.10.10.10. That is not right. Our DNS server should be, it looks like it's not listed up here, but our DNS server is 10.10.10.2. So we're actually seeing on this router a number of things that really need to be fixed on this config, this DHCP pool. So let's do that. Let's fix that one. IP DHCP pool PC. Config T. Here we go. IP DHCP pool PC. I'm using the exact same syntax. We know the network's good. The default router is not. So default router 192.168.64.1. I'm double checking 64.1. That is correct. And we need DNS on this guy 10.10.10.2. So that should fix that one. Let's look at the next one here. default router 128.1, option 150, 128.1, DNS server 10.10.10.2. That looks good for the phones. There's nothing we need to correct there. Here, 192.0, default router 192.10. There it is, DNS server 10. Again, that is incorrect. So let's fix that one. IP, DHCP pool, Wi-Fi. And we're using the exact same syntax. We need the default router needs to be 192.168, 192.1. 192.1. And our DNS needs to be 10.10.10.2. There we go. So let's do exit, exit. Let's do a show run. And let's check that this now looks correct. So 64.0, 64.1, 10.10.10.2. Perfect. We knew the voice over IP was good. 192.0, 192.1, 10.10.10.2. All right. So our DHCP scope should now be good. All right. Let's check NAT. While we're at it, let's check NAT because there might be an issue. We are looking at our interfaces. We're making sure that we have IP NAT inside under each interface, which we do. And then for the outside, we should see IP NAT outside, which we do. So that's the first part, looks good. We then need to check our the applying of our network. So I'm going to check my network. 64.0 looks good, and that is the inverse mask. 63.255 is correct. 255.255, 192.0. Well, 192 is 2 bits borrowed, which is borrowed to the 64 place. So inverse would be 63, one less, 63.255. So those are all correct. All of our networks are correct. We now need to check up here, and I see IPNAT inside source list 1, interface fast Ethernet 00, overload. That is not correct because we should be indicating the outside interface, and our outside interface is fast Ethernet 01. So that one right there, at least that first one, is not correct. So I'm going to config T. I'm going to do IPNAT inside source, oh my goodness, if I can type, source list 1, interface, fast Ethernet 0/0 overload. And now, as I look at this, I should see, oh my goodness, I think I typed 0/0, didn't I? All right, let's fix my fix. There we go. We need to do 0/1. There it is. My goodness, my typing. I should see all three of these identical now, which I do. Okay, so now we've checked our NAT. Let's check the routing table and make sure it's showing all networks. So we're going to do a show IP route. And I should see, here's the outside 172.16, 00 for VLAN 1, 64.0 for VLAN 10, 128.0 for VLAN 20, 192.0 for VLAN 30, looking good. I'm going to do a copy run start on this guy. Oops. Save what I have. Close that. I'm going to save my packet tracer file as well. And I have done a significant amount of fixing and updating on my router. When I come back in the next podcast, we're going to go through and start double checking that these repairs are working for our PCs.